Continuing coverage now of an ongoing I-Team investigation into the VA not paying emergency room bills of hundreds of thousands of veterans if they received care at a non-VA hospital.
Now, recent federal ruling against the VA now means those veterans, including some here in Ohio, could be owed as much as $6.5 billion.
The I-Team's Matthew Simon broke this story nationally more than 3 years ago. He continues his coverage this evening. Matthew?
Cheryl James, the I-Team's been working to find out how all of these veterans will get their refunds, if ever, and where those billions will come from.
Coinsurance is exactly like deductibles and copayments.
No, copayment or similar payment.
An argument over that one word so many of us know.
Everybody knows when you go into a hospital's emergency room situation, those tend to be rather modest amounts, $20, $200.
3 years ago, this same panel of U.S. Court of Veterans Appeals judges ordered the VA to follow the law and pay emergency care bills for veterans who had other insurance and went to non-VA hospitals. But the VA never started paying.
3 years, nothing's happened.
Hundreds of thousands who served their country were left with big emergency room bills to pay out of their own pockets.
This is also against the backdrop of Mr. Staub.
I was in basic training. That's when they took that picture, I believe.
Okay, here's another one, Dick.
86-year-old Minnesota Korean War veteran Richard Staub is one of them, left to pay bills totaling almost $48,000 for heart attack and stroke care he received at a non-VA hospital. The I-Team first met him back in February.
You enlist with us, you get all health care taken care of, and this and that. That was the big thing back then.
He sued when the VA would not reimburse him because he had other health insurance, in his case Medicare. His lawsuit was based on a 2010 law that required the VA to pay, but still they did not. His lawsuit led to a new rule named after him, the Staub Rule, requiring the VA to pay again.
Yeah, I know.
But still to this day, he has not seen a dime come back to him.
Let's face it, you don't like to talk about sadness. You'd rather talk about things that are cheerful.
When the I-Team reported this story in May, congressional sources told us Staub was not alone.
A congressional aide tells the I-Team only one single $12 reimbursement has ever been made under the Staub Rule.
How much has been paid to anybody? Well, since 2016.
To answer that question, our reporting was brought up during this May hearing.
We did attach to our reply brief, and this is all we really have to go on, a newspaper article reporting that there's been a single payment of $12 since the time that the regulations went into.
When the government tried to argue that was not true.
What we do know is that we have paid almost $2,500 as part of Mr. Staub's emergency care.
Judge William S. Greenberg fired back.
But why should we believe what you're saying?
VA lawyer Christopher Bader later said the government had no evidence any veteran had been paid more than the one $12 payment under the Staub Rule.
You don't have a record before you, and so the record is fact poor. I'll admit that.
Which brings us back to those copayment questions.
That's why we're struggling here.
As the Staub Rule began being implemented last year, the VA secretary added language, making it so the VA would treat any remaining bills similarly to cheaper copayments, including much more expensive coinsurance.
Congress didn't put that in. You people put it in.
Effectively, that language still made veterans responsible for their non-VA emergency bills, just as before the Staub Rule. But on September the 9th, responding to a new class action lawsuit, a judge ordered that language be thrown out, and requiring reimbursement as Congress intended. Calling the VA position inherently absurd, Judge Greenberg wrote, "Deductibles and coinsurance are not similar to a copayment." Under federal law, if a veteran dies, their benefit dies with them. In an affidavit swearing he had not been paid as the government claimed, Staub wrote, "I will be 87 years old on November 19th, and it is my hope that reimbursement will be paid before I die."
And you got to have hope that things will work out. You made the right decisions. And let's face it, not everything goes that smooth.
And that is really the sad thing in the years of my reporting. Veterans telling me because of these billing horror stories, they are more afraid of going to the closest non-VA emergency room than they are of the chances they might die and leave their loved ones with those horrible bills. Now, the judges have never said in their orders when the VA has to pay back these hundreds of thousands of veterans as much as $6 billion. In fact, the executive director of the group behind the class action lawsuit tells me they're now considering all options to deal with that question. We still do not know how many veterans here in Ohio are impacted because the VA's ignored our records request. For the I-Team, Matthew Simon, News Center 7.
And you can watch Matthew's original I-Team investigation detailing Richard Staub's decade-long legal struggle. You will find it on our WHIO streaming app. That's a free download on your Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV devices.